Warning, the following communications are not authorized. Please disable your signals and report to your local re-education center immediately. Failure to comply will result in immediate reprimand and capital punishment.
Oh, the safety and sanctity of the YouTube warning. Welcome, everybody, to another episode. Record episode in views last week. Eric Butler reporting Opine.
Awesome.
At gmail.com, I'd imagine.
I can't get my Getter account. I can't get it.
That's too bad. You're missing out. Samaire Armstrong, thank you for joining us. Thank you again for doing an episode of my show last week. It was a lot of fun. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I was really satisfied with how that turned out. We had a nice discussion.
Thank the editors. They make me look more handsome and sound cooler.
Your editors are incredible. I could say like peanut butter and they'd have like the image of peanut butter dancing across the thing.
For the record, I decide what goes on.
They made whoever is over there also made a really good intro of the episode when I was on with you as well. So somebody's doing good work over there.
Great work.
Somebody. I believe that's me. Let's jump right into it, you guys. The big news out of Nevada this week was that a transgender woman, we all of course know what that means, wins Miss Nevada USA pageant, making history. Read a little bit of this article from the New York Post. A transgender woman has been crowned Miss Nevada USA for the first time in the pageant's history. You don't say. Cataluna Enriquez, and we're gonna find out what she looks like, 27 years old, who only began competing last year in cisgender pageants, was named the winner Saturday in the competition at South Point Hotel Casino in Las Vegas, saying, "One thing that is important for me is inclusivity, diversity, and representation. It's something I did not have growing up and is still lacking in today's world. Here is your Mr. Mrs. Nevada." First thoughts to you, Samaire. Is this historic? Is this a landmark? Is this a publicity stunt? How do you feel about it as a woman?
As a woman personally, I mean, look, the beauty pageant and the sports to me is like two different things. I feel weird about beauty pageants anyways. Like, I'm the most beautiful here. Like, well, that's kind of strange. But I was thinking about it before I came on, and I didn't know we were going to be talking about this. And I do have transgender friends. So it's like, on the one hand, you can understand the feelings around their human experience, but on the other hand, and not to be super crass in any sort of way, it's like if we're going to do what's the word? The word when you like you do something. The word it's not a race. It's a pageant. When you do a pageant like that, right? If you're going to a dog show, say, right? You don't bring a cat to a dog show to win and be inclusive to the cat. If we're going to be specific to what we're competing against, like, we have to have an even playing field. I also think she looks gorgeous, and I mean, it's about beauty. Beauty is so shallow anyways, right? I don't know what she said when she spoke. Was it eloquent? Was it thoughtful? Was it complex? Was it dynamic? I'm not sure. It feels really silly to be talking about something so trite anyways. But in terms of what's going on in the world and the propaganda that, years ago, there was this big debate. Do we have same-sex marriage or not? And it seems so innocent to so many, right? And there were some who said, if we do, when will this end? It will just escalate. There needs to be a line in the sand. And it is what we're seeing now. It's escalating to the most bizarre places, in the most strange. And of course, I believe that a man and a man should be able to be together, and a woman. And I'm not saying that, but we need to hold true to some semblance of reality, and words matter. Truth matters. And so if we get into these really odd gray areas, I think all hell breaks loose, and all of a sudden we're in a color revolution.
Go ahead, Eric.
Which is what's
happening. You got something to say.
Well, it's just like, this is, it's a beauty pageant. It's supposed to be about beauty. That's obviously not what this is about, right? because clearly this is just about this is another virtue signal. This is another grain of sand on the heap of this weirdo post-reality that we live in, right? It has nothing to do with being the most beautiful woman at this point. I mean, are you really going to sit there and tell me that out of all the women who entered that competition, the best woman was a man? It's just not possible. This is just another way of them saying, look, we're in charge and you are going to deal with whatever reality we pitch you, whether it's the virus or whether it's transgenders or whether it's, you know, little kid. All of this is just to say we hold the power right now and you will obey. It has nothing to do with pageantry.
That's a really good point.
Let's read a bit more from what it says here. More of her quote. Today, I'm a proud transgender woman of color. Personally, I've learned that my differences do not make me less than. It makes me more than. I'm not sure. Okay. So being transgender and I hate the term of color. I thought we got away from that like 30 years ago. So being a transgender woman of color makes you more than others. Like, I get that you're trying to say, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and it's bizarre, right? It's this like, I want to be equal, but actually what that means is I'm better than you. And I think the problem is that so many, you know what I mean? So many confident citizens of the world are like, oh, okay, they have, you know, there's something emotionally, you know, perhaps lacking in this person's heart, and like have compassion. And that compassion is taken advantage of. And suddenly you become some sort of bigot being like, hold on, no, I'm a woman. These are women. This is a female pageant. I mean, yes, you're a human being and I care about your feelings and everything, but like, we're not like trying to be better or less than you. We're just existing. And this like sort of comparison to the two is what's violent, but you're not allowed to say that, you know, that it's looked at this, you're the innocent person in the situation. The woman who showed up to the pageant all of a sudden is the bad guy because a transgender female came in and declares they're better. Like, it's okay, cool, do your thing, but like, no, you know.
I'm reading ahead here, and
where are the feminists? Where are the feminists on this? Right.
That's I want to read more of this, Eric.
Okay. All right.
I want to read. It gets worse in a way. I did not always have money, and it's hard for women to find dresses that fit in their bodies. Like, so now you've got the whole female experience. You know exactly what it's like to be a woman. Pageantry is so expensive. I want to compete and be able to grow and develop skills and create gowns for myself and other people. But down here, Enrique said that she joined the competition to share her story and show that she's more than just a body. Like, come on. With pageantry, people think it's only about beauty, but it's how you present yourself, what you advocate for, and what you've done and the goals you have. So all this talk about oppression that's always going on, this person is so unoppressed that they're now winning women's beauty pageants, and they just talk as if it's completely normal. I've had this female experience my whole life. I'm a woman. You can't tell me any differently. And I'm sick of being used for my body, you guys. Like, come on. It's just,
yeah.
It's bizarre. Bizarre. It really is the best word for it, I think.
Yeah, and Eric, you said, I love Candace Owen calls it the post-reality, right? The post-reality era. That's what we're in. It's like, and it's doiling out. Here's what we believe now. If you don't, you're wrong, and we will persecute you to some social standard which you will not hold up to. You know, and it changes on a dime. And it's really like, if you're not waving the pride flag in support of it, you're against it, and we're going to show you how you're such a bad person because of it.
Yeah, and just really quick, obviously the feminists are nowhere to be found, but why does this work, right? If I know this analogy is probably beaten to death, but if I just want to identify as 7 feet tall and 280 pounds, and now I'm in the NBA, like, you see how that wouldn't work? But if it does for some reason work when you switch genders, I'm just not understanding this, right? Like, I identify as Steph Curry, and I'm going to shoot it from half court. It doesn't make it true. So I just don't.
It's a basketball reference, everyone.
Right,
okay, sorry.
I'm waiting for the female to male transgender to win the bodybuilding competition. That's going to be a good day for me, a good time, I think. Just like the Olympics, I'm waiting for it to go to the reverse way. It's probably never going to happen.
Bring Zuby back on and talk about it.
What about trans Korean?
Oh,
we can bring that up in a second. Trans Korean guy, I can't believe we didn't bring that up. But what I was going to talk about
there was too much this week.
From pretty ridiculous to the most ridiculous. Here's a story from us at Rebel News, us being, I don't know, Canada, I guess, according to you guys. Man on Air Canada flight, which is the biggest air travel company in the country, flight criminally charged for sneezing. Now, this guy named Vadim, what ended up happening was they were saying he was improperly wearing his mask. So the flight attendant comes over and is just like, you need to adjust your mask. And he's like, okay, I'm going to adjust it. And then he told her that he's got a condition and anything that like touches his face makes him sneeze. So he's like, if I pull it up right now, I'm probably going to sneeze. And Vadim says it was a dry sneeze and completely accidental. And in the video, he says that I kept warning her, I'm about to sneeze. And so he did one of, those sneezes where you sort of like hold it in and you go like that. That's how he described it. And then she looked like disgusted. And then 2 hours go by. They're no longer on the plane. Like he says nobody comes up to him and says anything else. Everything goes fine the rest of the flight. He wears his mask, even though it really irritates him. And when he lands at the airport, he's got police waiting for him as he gets off the plane to arrest and charge him. So about 2 hours later, the plane touched down at Pearson, which is the Toronto airport. And Vadim says he was shocked to be charged by waiting police officers. The maximum fine he faces is $5,000. He'll have his first court appearance next month. So he gets charged with a criminal charge, and it was, I believe it was criminal mischief is what they got him. If I get that wrong, please forgive me. I'm pretty sure it's criminal mischief because basically they're saying he sneezed on purpose. The flight attendant says that he got sneezed on her, which I believe he denies. She claimed that saliva and possible nasal fluids landed on her uniform. And he very deliberately leaned forward and emitted a loud sneeze. So that's his crime. This is where we're at in Canada. I know you guys are in much more free states than my entire country, which is slowly opening back up. Who knows what's going to happen after that? But the fact that we're here now and we have to play pretend that the rest of the world is still like locked down and these things are still happening. I don't know where we get off thinking that we can just I guess I want to ask you guys, like, what do you say to the cops who are enforcing this? Do you guys have an opinion on that? I know in the States we're still pushing back against defunding the police, but up here, a lot of people are losing faith in them because of pursuing charges like this. What do you guys think?
Do you want to go?
Okay, well, I'll go. As far as the police, right? I think slowly but surely people are starting to realize that the police here in the States, at least in the big cities, are tools of the left. So I think the conservatives, or again, I don't even really like the term conservative because at this point, it's just common sense, right? Like anybody with a little bit of common sense is deemed a right winger. But I think at this point, and I know this is maybe a little hyperbolic, but there are some cities where I would say, fine, defund the police. I don't care. You guys work for corrupt left-wing mayors and governors anyway, so we're better off without you. But as far as the Canadian situation, it's sad, bro, because I don't know. I think it was Michael Knowles or somebody said, I forget who said it. It was like, the sun is setting on what was, I think we're doing bad here as far as the freedom and all our rights being stripped away. But obviously you guys got it worse. And it really does look like, unfortunately, the sun is setting. For sneezing, bro, whether it was, how do you get out of, how do you work your way out of that? Like, it's all collapsed. I'm not to be a pessimist, but it may be too difficult to go back at this point.
It is, and even we're seeing now the West Coast and British Columbia, they are opening up quicker than the so-called conservative provinces. 7 out of 10 provinces are led by conservatives, and they're behind the liberal ones, and they haven't had nearly as many problems there as before. And in many cases, they've been more lenient. But we're at the point now where the conservatives in Canada, and I know you guys in Arizona suffer from the Conservative Party not representing you guys, but we're at the point now where we've had like 10 churches burned down, and the conservatives and the news corporations don't even say anything about it. So relying on the Conservative Party, relying on the police here, it seems like you can't rely on anybody. So I'm hoping in this next election that everybody goes completely off the board and strikes the fear of, I don't know, of Shaka Zulu into them, and they start listening maybe. I know, Samaire, that's what you said you're trying to do down in Arizona with all this stuff with Rusty Bowers at 9 o'clock news. He's got really a hilarious name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everything that you've just described in the first 2 segments that we're discussing feels like a nightmare. You're going through it and you want to wake up. Nothing sounds more absurd than getting fined or arrested or, a legal court case for sneezing on an airplane because your mask is too itchy. I mean, it's all so bizarre, and that's the world we're living in. And to your question about the police situation, so in Chandler, Arizona, you have a lot of uneducated or, like, say, rookie police officers who don't understand the Constitution, and you're seeing this all over the United States. And so when people are sort of trying to use this force of like a totalitarian COVID response, whatnot, like, if you don't wear the mask, I'm going to have you taken for trespassing. Well, legally speaking, like, if you can't, like, the only thing they can kind of get you on is trespassing. So they nail everyone for trespassing nowadays. But it's so unconstitutional if you're at a location that, say, a public meeting that you're allowed to be at and gather because it's public and you're, having your voice heard. So you have these officers who the conservatives have been championing for, and, back the blue, and they're like, well, hold on, guys, that's not what we, we don't want to back that. And then even in California now, so you've got the extremes, right? So now in California, there's this bill that's trying to be passed that will essentially, like, anytime there's an allegation against a police officer, it's a strike against him, and at a certain number, he's out and he can never be a police officer again. And this isn't to say that the allegations are real. They're just allegations. They're complaints. So if you imagine you're taking down a criminal, and the criminal's like, he hit me in the head when, I was fighting back. And, like, so you get Antifa or BLM or whoever out there, you get enough. I was speaking to a police officer. He said in the last 10 years, he's had, and this is a good cop, had 50 allegations against him. It happens all the time, and it doesn't matter. They look into it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, go on some sort of permanent record, because most of the time these people are lying, right? So now anyone can say anything in this mob mentality world. They'll systematically get rid of good police officers, put in rookies who, as you said, Eric, are in allegiance with the left, and you have total breakdown of society.
And just really quick, also, this is, again, another grain of sand on the heap. Like, last week we just talked about somebody getting arrested for shaking hands? So last week it was shaking hands. This week it was sneezing. Like, do you think next week it's just going to go away? No, dude, you guys are digging yourself a hole.
To correct you, we went from fine for shaking hands to fine for laughter and touching, and now we're fine for sneezing.
God.
Let's get our record straight here, okay?
What is the feeling in Canada? What's the, like, if you were to think about it in terms of statistics, are people pissed? Or is it just you?
I would say I wouldn't call it pissed. I'd say people have mostly given up. Sadly enough, it got to the point where people just don't try. There's something about being in Canada where we always had this thing about us where we're supposed to be the super polite people and just tolerant of everything. And that was clearly beaten into us to the point where most Canadians aren't willing to stand up for anything. And you can say that there's hope in a lot of places, but it's weird because 20,000 people won't stand up and say something like, we're not okay with these laws anymore. But 50,000 people will go outside to celebrate a hockey game and probably the next day get mad at other people for not adhering to social distancing or not wearing a mask inside. So it's really weird where it's like, as long as everybody else is doing the same thing, I'm okay with it. There's not a lot of, pushback because, like I said, the conservative politicians here, there isn't one person who holds a significant place in office in Canada that has stood up and said something. Now, there's members of parliament which I don't know what the equivalent would be. It'd be like a level above a city councilor, essentially. They're elected. They go to the government. They're supposed to represent the district where they came from. Basically, a member of the House, essentially. But there's only been like 2 of those guys. They get kicked out of their party, essentially, get kicked out of their caucuses, and there's not much else other than that. Like, I can name 3, maybe 4 politicians across the country who've come out against this stuff, and one of them's not even elected. He loses all of his elections. Maxime Bernier, if you've heard of him.
And then he got arrested.
He got arrested for holding a rally in Winnipeg like a month ago. So they're arresting politicians who are against it. Anybody who speaks out is silenced. And I get emails every single day. My work is trying to force me to get the vaccine or else they're going to fire me, which of course you can't do. But nobody I tell these people when it's directed at me, you have to stand up for yourself. If somebody says, oh, they're kicking me out of the post office here, doesn't allow mask exemptions because nobody stands up to it. And then the only recourse is you have to file a human rights complaint, which is a stupid thing to begin with, but it's the only method of recourse. So I have to tell people, you have to call the bylaw officer, you have to call the police and make this be enforced. But people don't want to do that. For some reason, people in this country don't want to stir the pot or rile anything up. And then I get heat sometimes for saying, I don't have sympathy for this cop who's part of this super powerful union who doesn't want to stand up and say, we don't want to enforce these crazy laws. I don't have sympathy for the teacher who doesn't stand up and say, we want the kids back in school. Because one, they have such powerful unions that if they all just banded together, they're not all going to get fired at all. But secondly, how long do we wait before I can no longer, before somebody can no longer use the defense of, I care about my job too much. I need my paycheck, et cetera, et cetera. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? How long until you say enough is enough and you're willing to put your ass on the line in order to, have some sort of freedom in the country? Maybe you don't want that. A lot of the people I interview, at least in Toronto, half of them don't seem to want to be doing anything other than what the government allows them to do or what the government tells them is okay to do. It's much different when you go outside of the major cities, but it's still just like the United States. The inner cities are very liberal and they dictate what's in the media and they get to dictate what's right and wrong. And just like happened at the airport, this flight attendant probably going home and thinking that the guy who sneezed is a monster, and it's great that he got charged. And people from Alberta email me, say it's great that these pastors got arrested. They should be following the rules. This is what happens when you don't follow the law. And it's like, is there anything that can happen that will make you stand up? Is there any law that can be passed? Or do you just think that, everything this government says goes and should be, followed and seen?
Oh, yeah.
I think the window's already shut. I mean, again, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I mean, every week, don't I? Pretty much every week, I say that something that happens should wake these people up. Yeah. And I try to remain optimistic, whether it's Fauci's emails or, there's a laundry list of stuff that you think would be like, but it doesn't happen.
Fauci's right back on TV too now. Like, they just waited a week and now he's back to being the foremost expert. Like, the guy literally gets caught lying about several things. And now it's just like, well, go ahead.
Yeah. He does it. He manages to say like 1,000 words without answering one question when asked, It's like, I just want to date when the trial is done. And it's like this whole monologue that never gets to the point. I was going to say also, someone wrote me that, this is a plague of comfort, right? So nobody, and probably to speak on what's happening in Canada, there's not enough, they will be given enough comfort to never have to really get uncomfortable to be motivated to do anything. Because for me, pain is a good motivator. If I'm uncomfortable, and I think, Eric, I think we're on the same page in this. It's like, you're like, guys, it's done. Like, this is a whole new world. It's over. So let's play catch up with what the real thing is, this reality that we're living in. Because it's hard. There's a charade going on all around. Like, we're just playing pretend like we're gonna get this, the audits are going to come through in Arizona and everything will domino into place. That's not happening, guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's done. I mean, did you see the video of Fauci and the woman from the Center of Disease Control? I don't remember her name, but they're essentially like,
no.
Yes, it is. I think the short brown hair. They're formulating a COVID-19 task force, a federal task force to send out and implement to small cities, big towns, and rural locations to combat this new Delta strain. I mean, you're like, a task? I think we're cool, guys. Don't need your help. Haven't asked for it. But I mean, that's where we're going with this stuff. They're talking about going out federally into local little communities and shooting people up. I mean, they're discussing it like with a lot of force. I mean, this is getting scary,
We got to get to some more topics before we run out of time.
I'm sorry. Well, because it's just okay. It's just like they are gonna force help. Like, they are good. Mm-hmm. We're here to help you. Like, there's no other option. But
and you're like, right. But nothing's wrong. I'm fine. Like, no, we're gonna save it. Yeah. It's gonna kill you in the process. But
the Delta Kappa Gamma Phi variant. They should just go through sorority names and fraternity names to get to this. You asked for it. We provide it. Is Oil London the person's name?
Ollie.
Oil London. Ollie London insists there. Oh, so we're using their proper pronouns in Newsweek. Very progressive, very cool. Ollie London insists they're transracial after surgery to get Korean eyes. That's a quote, not me. British-born white influencer Ollie London has doubled down on their assertion that they're transracial after declaring they now identify as. This is pathetic. Who is the writer? I don't care what the people say. The person who's writing this should know Ryan Smith, who doesn't have a link because it's on MSN, should know that you're making grammatical errors when you write this, and that should overcome your want to be woke. London, who identifies as non-binary, has faced backlash on social media over the past several days after saying on YouTube that they transition races and cultures to resemble K-pop idol Jimin of BTS. Let's see what kind of backlash Ollie London has faced.
Is he facing
I'm gonna come out
appropriation?
Yeah. I've just had a facelift, a brow lift, a temple lift, an eye surgery, a canthoplasty. Do we know what that is, you guys?
I don't.
Canthoplasty. We'll look at that. And my teeth done. These are just part of my transition. I'm feeling really good. For the first time in my life, I feel beautiful. I'm looking in the mirror and I love the way I look. I feel happy and I hope people can respect my decision. How about, it feels bad to make fun of this person, but this is some sort of eye widening.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's
I think it's this thing. Actually, a lot of models have it done. Where you pull your eye back. They call it like a cat eye. Allegedly this thing. They go like that. Yeah. And it was all the rage. They do this threading thing. I'm very curious about it. But gosh, so who's he getting backlash from? Koreans?
I don't know. People probably not. Koreans probably don't care. Now I'm finally I feel Korean. I identify with the Korean community. Maybe they will accept me more now because I have the look. This is just a person who's lost their mind. Maybe they will accept me now because I have the look. Maybe people will think I'm actually Korean, which would make me really happy. They can see how much I love their culture because of this extreme length I've gone to, because I love Korea so much. Now, there's definitely some backlash about this for this being insane. But Eric, you know that all of this will be fine until the Rachel Dolezal 2.0 comes out. And we all know that if somebody says that they're black, that's not going to be allowed.
Yeah, I'm not even entertaining this. Right, like, look, you want to you're transracial and you're non-binary. This is obviously an attention grab, and I do not have time for this, bro. It's not. This person, even us just bringing up this story, lets this person know that they won, and I can't do it. So
I feel bad for the person. I feel like they're hurting, or he speaks of it how discontent he felt and how he's finally happy.
They speak of it.
Sorry, yes, they spoke. No, I don't know. Ollie London speaks of how uncomfortable he was before and how satisfied. And yeah, like, I'm sure to some extent, external work can make you feel good, but it's really an inside job, isn't it, to get to that place of like really feeling solid, like a solid human being of service, helping other people, all of that stuff. But instead we pack on, the external things, and culturally, like, that's what we've been buying into for decades now. So I feel bad for them.
What? See, Eric's right. It's an exercise of victory, and when what's his face I just said wrote that article, you've conceded that being grammatically correct is not as important as somebody's feelings being hurt. If somebody wants to start me,
no. Now here's the line, and here's the line, right? I will
feelings.
One-on-one. No. I will one-on-one. If you're in my life, I will call you whatever you want. Bingo. Toyota Corolla, like whatever you want. You know what I mean? I have compassion for you. But on a general, if you're asking society to bend the knee to your issues, that's a whole nother thing. I'm not down with that.
I'll call somebody by the name that they want. I'm not going to start saying they.
Right.
You're going to be correcting yourself every 10 minutes. Doesn't make any sense.
That one's never made sense to me. Yeah.
Thine, your majesty. You just got to say your majesty to me now. A column in the LA Times says, "Put your mask back on, Eric." This is talking to you, and don't whine about it. This is by Robin Abkarian, a columnist for the LA Times. Clearly got her head on her shoulders. This is a little embarrassing to admit, but one of my favorite genres of video to watch during the COVID pandemic was mask fights. That's sick. Whether at Walmart, Home Depot, or airplanes or restaurants, anywhere people gathered could become a forum for angry outbursts. There's a moment, thanks to an inane politicization of masks by conservatives, when the furious, semi-coherent rants of mask opponents were regularly captured on cell phones. And then she goes through a few examples. Maybe people like me click these cringy links because of the historic rejection of a sound health measure, wrong, emblematic of the Trump era, when science and objective truth were considered political obstacles by our monomaniacal then president. Eric, already I'm feeling triggered like you usually get by Caitlyn Jenner. We're going out of our way here to say we're backing this is science and objective truth to put your mask back on for what I imagine is going to get into the variant, is it not? If we're putting them back on, because California and possibly maybe just LA, but California just reinstated indoor masks for the Delta variant. So put your mask back on and don't whine about it. And even though you're probably vaccinated, do it anyways. Help me make sense of this. Okay,
so you didn't even get to the best part of the article. The beginning, the mask fight, that's all nonsense. Doesn't matter. What really does matter here is towards the bottom, where this journalist says, "And I don't resent health officials for changing their advice or contradicting themselves. This, after all, is how science works." Okay, the Los Angeles Times is flying under the radar as far as fake news is concerned. The Washington Post, the New York Times, they always get all of the heat for being the flagship of fake news. But the Los Angeles Times and the San Francisco Chronicle deserve to be thoroughly ridiculed and torn apart, because this is them just getting their talking points, obviously directly from Fauci, right? Fauci will say something and then the news will report it, and then Fauci will say what the news reported, and it's a never-ending cycle of absolute nonsense. But they go out of their way to say that I don't resent the scientists, I trust the science, and you should too. And then if you look at the very last part of the article, you don't have to love it, you just have to do it. This is what the Los Angeles Times is promoting to, I guess, I don't really know who's in the market for this. Maybe, your 25 to 50-year-old or whatever, 34 to 54-year-old demographic. I mean, basically they're preaching to the choir, right? So if you already are on board with this, of course you don't have to sell them. But as somebody who's already going to be like, I don't want to do the mask, I don't want to do this experimental, gene thing, I don't want to do any of that, is that person going to read this and now say, oh, you know what, you're right, I shouldn't be mad at Fauci, and I don't have to love it, but I just have to do it, right? Who is the audience for this?
They have a huge audience of 3.7 million people on Twitter, and this reads just more like this is what this person was doing when she says, or he, could be Robin, could be a guy, I don't know. We wiped down our groceries, scrubbed kitchen and bathroom counters, polished our doorknobs with bleach. We washed our hands until they cracked and spent plenty of time yelling at the kids to do the same. But now we know that the virus is transmitted primarily through respiratory droplets and is unlikely to survive for long on surfaces. So we just did things without considering what the actual reality is. We just did things without actually looking into it for ourselves.
And we're going to
have to love it.
We're going to.
You don't have to love it. You just have to do it.
Yes.
This is like H3H3 versus Steven Crowder there. What decisions do you need to make? The government's there, the CDC's there just to tell you. It's like how have you not figured out by now that there isn't some magical institution, there isn't some magical place that's unbiased and is never going to, present something from a certain point of view in order to get money or gain influence and power? I don't know why that she mentions Miss Magoo. When the fog on my glasses made me feel like Mr. Magoo from the mask. Samaire, is this a little bit like what you mentioned in our interview about California and the movie industry, where it's just like, don't question anything, just do it because that's what everybody else is doing?
I think I have a theory about this. So when COVID first came out, I heard about it months in advance. I had found a virologist online. His name is Science Guy, and I started asking him about it because no one was talking about it yet. He's like, we don't know what it is, and that's the scary thing, is that we don't know how bad it will get, right? So then they hit us hard, shutting down New York, shutting down Los Angeles. I was actually in Hawaii when they shut down New York. I landed, and then shortly thereafter, they were discussing shutting down Los Angeles. And you're like, holy, I've seen this movie. I understand how outbreak works. Like, the world is about to all die, and we're not taking this seriously enough. There was a lot of hysteria. There was a lot of concern. Do you remember those visuals of how it spreads with the dots? Do you remember that? Right? So, then you have some people who are allegedly doctors, not even Fauci at this point, but virologists, and they're scared. And so I remember, do you remember the boat that was swimming around in the water and had all these members on board? It was a cruise.
A cruise ship, yeah.
Right? No one would let them dock because it was so dangerous, and people were dying on the boat, and they're storing them. And remember all that? So the hysteria sets in, and a bit of cognitive dissonance happens, right? And then as uneducated, emotionally traumatized individuals, which is a large portion of these liberal states and cities, these big cities, Los Angeles specifically, is you've got, okay, this is perfect. Los Angeles and New York, I don't know about San Francisco, but both cities people go to in hopes that their dreams will come true. They're going to make it big. They want attention. They're narcissists. They're vapid. They're emotionally unstable. I mean, these are like the most, I'll bet you the most therapist bills probably occur in those two locations, right? So you have these people who aren't exactly solid, and myself being one of them at the time. I did what she said. they said the crews, like, they found the COVID-19 on the rails and whatnot. And I was like, I've got to protect my family, and squirt with bleach or whatever. I'm like thinking that the person who's bringing my food to my door is a superhero for like risking her life because I didn't want to go to the grocery store. There was a bit of delusion going on at the time. And then I remember researching, and this is the part, we're not educated. We haven't been educated on how to gain and discertain facts, statistics, cognitive, like a critical thinking, a way of thinking beyond what's being shoved out at us in this fear state. I remember looking for research papers because I had a picture, it's still up on my Instagram, a picture of myself with a mask on. It was a mask I bought on Amazon, which I also don't use anymore. And my dad was like, dude, like, come on, this was like the dumbest thing I've seen you do, basically. The masks are absolutely pointless. And I did some research. I found an article, saw a study. Oh, look, wow. Okay, so there's the crack, right? As soon as that crack happens and I find some piece of evidence, and then now I'm like, okay, now I start to question everything. Well, getting to that moment to have that crack is really challenging for a lot of people. I went back 2 weeks later to look for that article to study. It was gone off the internet. So we can't just blame these people. Yes, they're dumb. Yes, they're gullible, but it's a battle out there, and you're inundated with these groups of people who are aching inside. And I speak to the emotional context of what's going on out there because I saw it firsthand and I experienced it firsthand. That people don't understand how to be a fulfilled human being, and they get it from the outside in. So if you've got Dr. Fauci or whoever, your political leader is telling you that you'll be a great person if you do what we say, and they aren't, finally, I've got fulfillment, right? So they're tapping into the emotional cavities of these people and really playing them like puppets. It's really quite sad.
She's so much nicer than us, Eric.
Yeah, well, it works because, I mean, look, you can see I have all my old New York propaganda. I mean, they were in New York. They were just.
Did you find your dreams there?
I found a nightmare.
A nightmare.
Well played.
Nightmare.
Yeah. And they just inundate you. And I think it was easier for me to see from the beginning because I just happened to live a couple blocks away from one of these testing facilities where they were, napping in hammocks and throwing around a football. So it was easy for me to see from the beginning. I was like, this doesn't really add up. But the propaganda works because I even on a personal note, I talked to my dad at the beginning of it. And my dad, he's getting close to 70 years old. And he can say, I lived through Zika, swine flu, bird flu. I'm a child of the 60s or whatever. And he was, not worried about it.
Y2K. Oh no, did we lose him?
Looks like we just lost him.
Oh, he was on such a good rant too.
I had to cut him off. I had to save my image. No, I'm just kidding. The next thing we were going to get to was this NSA spying. He'll be back, don't worry. NSA spying on Tucker Carlson, and it looks like Matt Gaetz. See, there he is. Looks like Matt Gaetz has calling for the Inspector General to investigate Tucker Carlson NSA allegations. Now, the NSA sort of at first said, we don't know what you're talking about. Then they basically admitted it. Are they just hoping that everybody forgets that they've been caught lying before? I mean, the people testified before Congress. They were caught lying. Of course, Edward Snowden's all about that. Shout out Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I believe played Edward Snowden in a movie. Haven't seen it. But Representative Matt Gaetz called for an independent Inspector General investigation into allegations the NSA monitored on Fox News host Tucker Carlson in any way. Just wait until he gets those Freedom of Information requests. They're going to try to hide it probably for a year. And then he's finally going to get them, and it's going to make him millions of dollars in viewership and everything. Eric, since you got cut off, do you want to go first on this one? What's the likelihood that we get straight answers out of the NSA here, who's supposed to only do international spying?
Zero. I mean, obviously they're going to lie. They're not going to lie. They're going to, they're going to use all these weasel words. Like we already saw their little statement. Tucker has never been a target of the agency. That doesn't mean you didn't read his email, right? So they're going to give you the runaround. and it's very similar to what you see with the CIA and the FBI. All of these government agencies have unfortunately become the enforcement arm of the radical left.
Mm-hmm.
Samaire, do you think that there's any, and I'm sorry I'm not pronouncing your name properly ever.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Do you
Yes,
do you
Andrew.
see this as becoming somebody from, I think it was Facebook, one of their representatives said that they get 5,000 requests in a year from government agencies to, tap into their messages and their personal information, and that's just the one thing. Do you think this is going to be ending up in a whole national blow like what happened with Edward Snowden, or is because it's sort of like the Biden administration in charge right now, which is really the Harris administration, do you think that stuff gets pushed aside for as long as possible, or do you think it matters who's in charge in that situation?
I think the NSA and CIA and FBI are likely operating without their, need for direction from an authoritative figure. So I don't think it matters who's in charge. I think most Americans who are awake at this point operate from a standpoint of assumption that you're at all times being monitored to some extent. And I know, for example, I recently found out through Judicial Watch Freedom of Information request that I was on a list from the Secretary of State in California to have my Instagram silenced. So we're being watched, especially those of us who have some, a bit of a following in terms of people listening, especially to be monitored, and much like what happened on January 6th, I imagine to, if necessary, build a case of some sort to be made an example of.
And just really quick, I definitely know, I'm hearing from some of my Instagram followers that I'm being shadow banned. They can't find my handle unless they type the whole thing in, like every single letter. It won't auto populate until you get the last letter, which is definitely true for you as well, because I just, right before we went live, I was looking for you.
Yeah.
And then you have to type in every single letter properly, period. It will not accept any typos. So.
Do you guys remember when Deborah Messing and the other guy from Will and Grace said that they wanted to put Trump supporters on a blacklist for Hollywood?
Yes, that's right.
That's from 2019.
Yes, that was.
And Whoopi Goldberg actually spoke out against it.
Wow, that's shocking.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons it took me so long to speak up was because in my industry you have so many idiots talking, and they just feel like.
Oh, now we can call people idiots.
Were we not allowed to before? Right. Wait.
I'm just kidding.
Am I gonna? Okay. Yeah. No, but that's the
You're
thing.
Getting kicked off.
Am I? Oh, darn it. Okay, sorry. Morons, is that better? With platforms trying to, give social guidance on how life should be, and it's like, shut up, you know nothing, and it's okay. Sorry, that's besides the point. What she did set a precedent for other people and their perception, and it's really unfortunate because then also AOC started to echo that sort of list making as well, right? It became a pattern, a modus operandi to, these people are bad and we should stay away, and they have, the scarlet letter on them, which would be T for Trump, I guess.
Eric, you're on a list. You have to be.
Yeah, a couple probably, yeah.
The San Francisco list and the New York list. He's lived in both, for those of you who don't know. Let's take a second to pay the proverbial bills and give you guys a little bit of a break here. We've got Samaire on Samira.
There you go.
See, you got to roll the R like a Scotsman. .xo on Instagram, and of course you can find her on Twitter as well. We've got Eric's book still for sale. It's behind me that you can't see right now, but every day I do it. Every time we're on here, Guy in Garbage.
Oh, nice.
This link doesn't let me see the other guy. That's unfortunate. I like to play the game where
the Kindle link, I believe, but
oh, excuse me.
To get the preview? No.
Maybe it's Firefox just messing with me now, or maybe you've been censored. This New York City 2020 Gotham Unglued is only available on InfoWarsStore.com. Get your copy today with your uniodized glue.
That
Gotham is coming unglued.
That is not true. You can buy it on Amazon.com or, of course, Barnes & Noble for all the Amazoniverse, which I totally understand as well.
We don't have Barnes & Noble in Canada, Eric. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
And yeah, before we get into my accent, as you can see on rebelnews.com/Andrew says _says, or you can go to the show directly from the top. Here's my interview that we did last week. Talked a lot about Hollywood programming and, of course, a lot of other stuff that I can't remember right now. The battle you're going through in Arizona with Rusty Bowers, the greatest name in the world, probably the worst speaker of the House. And the stuff you're doing there.
Have you seen a picture of him?
Yes, he's bald.
Okay, yeah. He looks like Rusty Bowers. So yeah, oh yeah, look at this. Oh, that's a nice picture. Go to images. Can you do that? Can you?
It sounds like a wrestler, like Rusty. That's an old wrestler, like
these
a
are
90s
all
wrestling
nice
name.
pictures. They must. Okay, I see at least one that isn't that flattering. Well, whatever.
She got mad at me for not saying they. Now we're looking for ugly pictures of Rusty Bowers. Okay, everybody? I just want to point that out.
I didn't get mad.
I know you didn't get mad. People can watch the tape. And then my new episode is with Adam Skelly, who's the famous guy who wouldn't close his restaurant. They sent horseback police after him. They locked his doors. They arrested him in front of everybody, fined him $187,000, took control, seized his restaurant. Brought to you by this week, Elevate Farms. By the way, we've got a sponsor now, Eric Butler.
Nice.
And the other thing I wanted to say before we get back to some more news before we go here, the only thing people ever say that I sound Canadian when I say it is about. I don't know what they're hearing. I think people are hearing a boot, but I don't think I say anything weird with an accent. Sorry. I could say sorry. Sorry or sorry if you guys want.
No,
just don't
apologize.
Just be great. Yeah, just be great.
Just thank you. That's very inclusive of you. The new website called Getter launched. It's basically Twitter, and I'm going to pull up my own one because I've got a whopping 15 followers since starting today. But they opened it. It's basically, you can see it looks just like Twitter. It's pretty much exactly the same. They're already stopping, from what I read, Gmail and Outlook from getting people's links on there so they could sign up properly. Looks exactly the same. I know people are going to say get her done. What's his face? Larry the Cable Guy, who's very cool, has retweeted me once. Shout out Larry the Cable Guy. I know they're going to start using that as a way to make fun of it. But should we care about this? Parler already exists. I'm sure it's going to be deplatformed in some way, taken off the store for being alt-right or something. Do you guys care about a new platform popping up?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I signed up for Gab. I signed up for Parler. I signed up for MeWe. I signed up for there's another one, and there's so many to manage. I actually do like Telegram, but no, I don't know what. There's also Frank. I mean, what's the point of talking into an echo chamber, or Spreak Frank, or what was it? I know it doesn't feel like it feels like a bit of a silencing. Like I'm not like the biggest Trump fan at the moment, to be honest, because I feel super, I feel let down in a lot of ways with the vaccine and with, how he handled the 6th and how he continues to handle, not that he's like the end all be all, but I think that maybe that's my own issue, right? I thought he kind of was at one point. And then now I'm sort of realizing like, well, probably not. And also there is an element of, are we being taken advantage of in terms of like where our allegiance is, just naturally being conservatives, and what he had been the greatest president in so long, if not ever. Okay, maybe not ever, but in so long. And I just don't like, I don't like being pulled around by my nose. Is that a saying?
I think so, in Three Stooges or something.
Fear, yeah.
Eric, I think wouldn't the counter argument to that be, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, that it's a place where you won't be shadow banned and you have a chance to grow? Because I'm going to give an example. Even though it doesn't work in Canada, I don't think anymore. Parlor, I grew faster than that in a week than I did in a year on Twitter. And thinking back to when I first started my YouTube channel, and you start off just posting content, and then all of a sudden there's a mark you hit where as long as you keep putting out content that you're proud of, you can keep going up and up and up. And then you notice a significant time when it stops, when you're clearly you don't want to believe it at first, but you're clearly being messed with. I know the feeling of being able to, grow, and I'm sure that's happened to many other people now. Of course it has. And I think that would be the counter argument, wouldn't it, Eric?
Well, I think, look, I'm not really too worried about this new platform. Same thing with, Frank Speech and Gab and Parler and all that stuff. I think what this does do, though, and I think, we can talk about the Gmail issue, which is very strange, and haven't looked into it, so I don't want to go too tinfoil hat on that. But we see a pattern, right? They don't like certain people on certain platforms. They say, well, it's a private platform. You can make your own. But of course, you can make your own, but you can't distribute it because the App Store won't let you distribute it because they don't like what you say. So there's always going to be another level to it. But on the plus side, this does, I believe, show that there's still, no matter how much we get beaten down, no matter how much common sense is shunned, and you're called all these names in the books because you don't think that a 6'6" man is magically a woman, is that it shows that people are not stopping this fight, that we're not giving up. So all the alt platforms, Gab and MeWe and all that stuff, at least this shows that people are still trying and it's not over yet, right? It's almost like, I almost want to compare it to like Tom Brady in the fourth quarter. Like the man's down, he's down 3 touchdowns with 2 minutes to go, but somehow he gets 4 touchdowns. Like, I still have to remain a little bit positive about the whole thing. Now, I've tried to sign up to all of them to varying degrees of success. I will agree that I am enjoying, outside of Instagram, of course, which is still the most, active for me, is Telegram. And I actually, so funny we're talking about this platform right now is because I actually signed up for Twitter for the first time today. So, like, because I was not.
I think he's trying to tell me something.
For my mental health, I wasn't on Twitter, but now I guess with like a new work situation that they're strongly suggesting that I get it. So I'll be on there, which is just kind of ironic that the day they put out Getter, I end up going to Twitter. So I guess I'm very traditional Republican in that sense. Like I'm just a leftist from 10 years ago. So I'm kind of late to the Twitter party, but
this account is a mere 1 hour old, as far as I know. I think we've run out of time here. I mean, the Trump Organization CFO is getting charged. We know the name of that person. Alan Weissel.
It's all political hackery.
Well, thank you, Samaire, for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you on my show and to have you on this show. You're much more famous than we are, so we owe you.
It's my pleasure. No, you don't
things
know
can
me.
I give you guys? I'm kidding. Jeez, I'd never give anything to anyone. Final words? Anything else to say?
Well, Eric, it's really great to meet you. I love your perspective. This is my first time. Sorry. I'm excited because I feel like you've got some hope in you, and you also have like a clear perspective on what reality is. And that's part of the hardest. I'm hearing so much, and I know I'm experiencing the biggest challenge is to walk through life in this moment where some people are pretending it's one thing and it clearly isn't, and the cognitive dissonance of people who are still playing charades. And then even on our side, I'm like, you guys, it's done. Now's the time we suit up and we fight for our freedoms, right? Not just like wait it out. We'll see what happens in this next election, and it's like the elections are fake. How are we going to wait that out? Like we got to show up now and do what we can. So that's the biggest challenge. So it's nice to find people who are like-minded and then that they see all aspects of what's going on and still seem somewhat sane and positive. So I appreciate that. And of course, you, Andrew, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, and thank you for all that you're doing and sharing from what's happening beyond up there and the insanity for what it is.
All about it. I'm all about it, you guys.
Awesome.
Eric, I think what you're trying to say is to continue trusting the plan. I think that's the message we're getting from you today.
Yeah, it's gonna be August. It was April, it was March, and then it was April. Now it's August. So
we got a month.
Plan,
we got a full month.
Remain complacent.
He's going to be in office soon.
Right. Oh man.
Vice President, pillow guy. There he is. We're going to close it out on Eric's book one more time, Eric.
Every
people in the
time.
back, as they say.